Dear students, welcome back. Today, we are going to focus on bar charts. Bar charts can be drawn either vertically or horizontally. Bar charts can effectively show differences. So when we describe bar charts, we need to pay attention to how to make contrasts. In order to answer this question, let's have a look at bar charts presented on this slide. In the first chart, there is only one category of data collected, so we only need to figure out the differences between different items. In the second chart, data are organized according to different categories, so there are two different columns with different colors. When we describe the second chart, we also need to pay attention to the differences within each category. Let's see an example on the next slide. We can see from the bar chart that in the employed, full-time, unemployed, and retired groups, men enjoyed more leisure time than women. In the employed group, men enjoyed 85 hours of leisure time, while females only had 75 hours. In the category of retirees, males had 83 hours of leisure time, whereas females had less than 75 hours. The gender gap in this group is 2 hours smaller than that in the full-time workers group. Women who were employed on a full-time basis had the least leisure time, 38 hours, while their male counterparts had 48 hours of leisure time. Can you underline the expressions used to make contrasts? The comparative form of an adjective is one of them. Men enjoyed more leisure time than women. There is also a comparative form. The gender gap in this group is 2 hours smaller than that in the full-time workers group. Finally, we have seen the conjunctions that serve to connect phrases and clauses such as whereas and while. Here are more examples. The superlative form helps us to locate the most noticeable data within one group. For example, we could say, Asia is by far the biggest region, with 3,721 million people. Or sales stood at the lowest level in March, indicating the highest or the lowest column in one bar chart. The population of China is more than that of Britain. The volume of our branch is approximately twice that of their branch. The sales of TV sets were half as much as the sales of VCD players. The percentage of profit doubled from July to October. In the unemployed group, men enjoyed 85 hours of leisure time, while females only had 75 hours. We need to identify the counterpart when we make contrasts. That is why that is highlighted here. The sentence pattern is more or twice or 3 times plus than. Double and triple could be verbs when we describe the changes of certain data. Conjunctions can be used to make contrasts too. When we use conjunctions, we need to make sure that the subjects should be different in the main clause and the clause. For example, men and ladies, males and females. Now it's your turn. This bar chart reveals that carbon dioxide emissions will expand to varying degrees in different sectors by 2030. Please describe this bar chart using expressions we've just learned. Let's read the example. Find out the expressions used to describe data in the bar chart. The bar chart reveals that carbon dioxide emissions will expand to varying degrees in different sectors by 2030. Industry will continue to be the major producer of carbon dioxide, rising to more than 10 billion tons in 2030. Next comes the consumer sector, which is projected to more than double its emissions from less than 4 billion to 8 billion or more tons. Transportation, the third largest producer, will see a huge growth to 6 billion tons, triple the amount in 2002. By comparison, waste, combustion, and other sectors make up a much lower proportion, each producing an estimated 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide. We can find the expressions such as the major, double, the third largest, triple, and lower that indicate contrasts. Did you compose the similar sentences? So far, we have talked about bar charts. A bar chart can show trends too, especially when the data of its categories are organized according to certain time sequence. Look at the slide, please. If we change the columns of this bar chart into different points, it turns out to be a line chart. So, we could definitely use what we have learned in the previous lesson to describe this graph. And at the same time, we need to make contrasts between different categories. Let's see the example. This bar chart shows the time spent by UK residents on different types of telephone calls between 1995 and 2001. Local fixed line calls were the highest throughout the period, rising from 72 billion minutes in 1995 to just under 90 billion in 1998. After that peak, these calls had fallen back to the 1995 figure by 2001. National and international fixed line calls grew steadily from 38 billion to 61 billion at the end of the period in question. There was a dramatic increase in mobile calls from 2 billion to 46 billion minutes. This rise was particularly noticeable between 1998 and 2001, during which time the use of mobile phones tripled. To sum up, although local fixed line calls were still the most popular in 2001, the gap between the three categories had narrowed considerably over the second half of the period in question. Before we finish this unit, I would like to talk about numbers. When we write reports, data are first-hand data. In this case, we use exactly this data in our reports. Have you noticed that sometimes it is impossible for us to read the exact number from a chart or a graph? So when we report second-hand data, we sometimes have to estimate the numbers. Here are some useful expressions. Over 300 enterprises provided more than 6,000 positions on this employment fair. The automobile travels 150 kilometers in under an hour. It will take less than an hour to get there. It took more or less a whole day to paint the ceiling. It cost approximately 300 yuan. Some 430,000 men and women worked on Canadian farms in 1995. These expressions are handy when you describe a chart or a graph. In this part, we started with the features of bar charts, and then we summarized useful expressions through reading example chart. Superlative forms, comparative forms, and conjunctions are handy for bar chart description. Finally, we compare a bar chart with a line chart and draw the similarities. In this unit, we have discussed different types of graphs and their features. We learned about line graph, pie chart, and bar chart. We focused on describing trends, percentages, and contrast. Now, you must be very confident about writing an essay about graphs. This is the end of this unit. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a brighter future.